It was a late night in Willow Creek, Oregon. Cold winds swept through the cobblestone streets, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Inside the warm golden glow of the Marionberry Haven Bakery, 30-year-old Emma Rivera was sweeping up the last crumbs of the day. The aroma of flour mixed with the sweetness of ripe berries filled the air, but Emma couldn't bring herself to enjoy it. She paused, resting her hands on the broom handle, a sharp pain in her chest stopping her mid-motion. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Lord, please give me strength." The small cross necklace around her neck, a keepsake from her mother, touched her skin gently, reminding her she wasn't alone. Emma, her brown hair tied up and her eyes weary, wiped the sweat from her brow. 10 years ago she'd arrived in Willow Creek, pregnant with twins and nursing a shattered heart. The man she had once loved, Leo Bennett, had left her the moment he learned she was pregnant, believing the lie that she had betrayed him. But Emma didn't let the heartbreak destroy her. With the faith her mother passed down to her, she prayed each night at the St. Peter's Church, seeking strength to raise Nate and Noah, her 9-year-old boys who had become the light of her life. 2 weeks ago, a violent cough had shaken her to the core. In the bakery's bathroom, she had seen blood on her handkerchief. Dr. Harris from the town clinic sent her for a CT scan, and the results hit like a blade. A benign tumor in her lung, requiring surgery soon to avoid complications. The cost? Nearly $40,000, an unimaginable sum for a single mother working at a bakery. Her basic insurance wasn't enough to cover it, and she had just exceeded the income threshold for Medicaid. "Lord, please guide me," she prayed. But the thought of Nate and Noah tightened her chest. Emma didn't want her sons to know. They were too young to bear this burden. She tried to pick up extra shifts, even as each step grew heavier. The bakery had become her refuge. Mrs. Martha, the owner, had given her this job when she first arrived in Willow Creek. Pregnant and homeless, Emma learned how to bake Oregon's signature Marionberry pies and sang hymns for customers on Friday nights. Her voice, clear as the Deschutes River, once enchanted the whole town. But now every time she sang, her chest felt like it was being squeezed. She glanced at a photo on the wall. Nate and Noah in matching blue sweaters, beaming during last year's harvest festival. Nate, the quiet one, always noticed the little things. Noah, full of energy, could make a whole room laugh with just one sentence. Both boys loved music, a gift inherited from Emma. She had taught them to sing "You Are My Home," a hymn-like song she composed back in music school, a prayer and melody. "You two are my home," she often said, hugging them tight. Tonight the coughing returned. Emma rushed behind the counter, covering her mouth with a cloth. When she pulled it away, the red specks made her tremble. She clutched her cross and whispered, "Lord, please don't let them lose their mother." The prayer steadied her, but fear still crept in. She told herself, "I have to be strong. For Nate, for Noah, and for his plan." She checked her phone. A message from Mrs. Martha. "Emma, take tomorrow off. You look exhausted." Emma smiled faintly. "Take a day off?" Each extra shift meant more milk and school books for her sons. She replied, "I'm okay, thank you." But she wasn't okay, she knew it. And so did God. The wind chime above the door jingled as Mr. Jenkins, the bookstore owner across the street, walked in. "Emma, still here?" he asked in his warm, gravelly voice. He often brought old comic books for her boys, and was a devoted member of St. Peter's Church. Emma forced a smile. "Just finishing up, sir." He looked at her with concern. "You're looking pale. Come to church this Sunday with the boys. Prayer helps." Emma nodded, touched. "I'll try, sir." After he left, Emma locked up the shop and turned off the lights. Stepping into the October chill, her thin coat barely held back the cold. Willow Creek was peaceful, with only the sound of pine needles rustling in the breeze. She walked past the town square, where a poster for the Oregon Talent Spark competition was being put up. The biggest talent show in the Willamette Valley, grand prize $20,000. Emma stopped and skimmed it. She remembered her days at the conservatory, dreaming of performing on big stages. But that dream had died with Leo. She whispered, "Lord, if that dream isn't mine anymore, please give me the strength to live for my children." When she reached the small wooden house, Emma quietly opened the door. Nate and Noah were asleep on the couch, a picture book resting on Noah's chest. On the table was a drawing by Nate, the three of them by the Deschutes River, holding hands with the words, "Mom is home." Emma sat down and brushed their hair. Tears slid down her cheeks as she prayed, "Lord, please protect Nate and Noah. If I can't make it, let them find your love." What she didn't know was that in Portland, Leo Bennett had just arrived in Willow Creek, holding an old photo and haunted by the guilt of leaving Emma and the child he knew she carried. And he didn't yet know that God was guiding him back to face his past into a family in need of healing. You're watching Soul Stories, where every tale whispers of love, healing, and hope. If you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life, and that love often arrives when we least expect it, don't forget to subscribe and be part of our journey. Now stay with us. The story is just beginning. Saturday morning sunshine spilled golden light over the narrow streets of Willow Creek, filtering through the pine branches and lighting the path to the elementary school. Nate and Noah Rivera, 9-year-old twins, rode their bikes along the sidewalk, their identical blue backpacks bouncing behind them. Nate, quiet and cautious, led the way, his brown eyes focused on the road. Noah, lively and always smiling, followed behind, whistling the melody of "You Are My Home," a hymn-like song their mother had taught them, one they often sang in the choir at St. Peter's Church. "Nate, hurry up! Miss Harper's gonna scold us if we're late," Noah called out cheerfully, his slightly chipped front tooth peeking through his grin, a souvenir from a past bike crash. Nate looked back, frowning. "You always make me worry, Noah. It's Saturday, but Miss Harper still doesn't mess around." Being 3 minutes older, Nate felt it was his duty to protect his brother, just like their mom protected both of them. The boys stopped in front of the school gate, where a poster for the Oregon Talent Spark fluttered in the wind. The biggest talent show in the Willamette Valley. Grand prize $20,000. Noah pointed, eyes shining. "Nate, look, $20,000. We could buy medicine for Mom or a new guitar for the church." Nate shook his head, though a faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Mom would tell us to pray instead of chasing money, Noah." Noah laughed. "Then we'll pray and sing." They entered the schoolyard, where students had gathered for the community meeting. Miss Harper, their music teacher and a member of the church choir, was handing out flyers about the contest. "Kids," she said enthusiastically, "this is a chance God has given you. Use your talents to shine, like candles in the church. This year's prize could change your life." Noah grabbed a flyer and read aloud, "Singing, dancing, acting, any talent." Nate glanced over silently. He didn't like crowds, but he remembered something Mom once said. "When you sing, God listens, and He'll show you the way." After the meeting, they walked back through the Willow Creek Square, where harvest festival stalls filled the air with the scent of apple pie and coffee from River Brew. Noah paused at the taffy stand, but Nate tugged his sleeve. "Let's go. Mom's waiting. She promised raspberry pie tonight." Noah nodded, though his eyes lingered on the flyer in his hand. Back at their small wooden house, they found Emma in the kitchen, kneading dough slowly. She wore a green apron, her hair loosely tied back, the tiny cross pendant peeking from beneath her collar. "My little angels are home," she said with a smile, trying to sound cheerful. But Nate noticed. Mom looked pale, her hands trembling as she lifted the baking tray. Noah rushed to tell her about the contest. "Mom, there's a talent show in town. The prize is $20,000. Nate and I could sing 'You Are My Home.'" Emma smiled faintly. "A big stage isn't so easy, my loves. Focus on school and church, okay?" She turned away, coughing lightly into a cloth, thinking the boys didn't see. But Nate saw. He saw the red stain on the cloth before she quickly folded it. His heart tightened. Noah kept chattering, but Nate pulled him into the living room. "Noah, Mom's really sick," he whispered seriously. Noah's face turned pale. "She's just tired, right?" Nate shook his head. "I heard her talking to Miss Martha. She needs surgery, but we don't have the money. I saw the blood, Noah." Noah clutched the flyer, eyes filling with tears. Mom's going to be okay, right?" he asked, his voice trembling. Nate didn't answer right away. He looked at the drawing on the table. of the three of them by the Deschutes River, holding hands. I remember Mom saying God always has a plan, Nate said softly. If she won't tell us, then we have to help her. Noah raised the flyer, his voice suddenly filled with determination. The contest, Nate. We can sing. Mom says our voices are gifts from God. If we win, we can save her. Nate hesitated. He was scared of the stage, scared of all those eyes watching. But he thought of Mom singing hymns through chest pain, praying every night. He nodded. Okay, but we can't tell Mom, and we'll pray for God to help us. The boy snuck into the bedroom and grabbed Emma's old guitar. Nate strummed a few notes, his voice small but steady. We'll sing for Mom, just like we do at church. Noah nodded, eyes glowing like sunlight. God will hear us, Nate. We'll be his little duo. They knelt down holding hands and prayed. Dear God, please bless us with voices strong enough to save Mom. Please guide us. That night, while Emma thought her sons were asleep, Nate and Noah sat under the desk lamp, whispering their plan. Noah scribbled a team name, Rivera Twins. Nate crossed it out and wrote, Rivera Stars. They giggled, a soft hope rising in their hearts like a candle's flame in the church. In the corner of the room, a photo of their mother and the boys by the Deschutes River seemed to watch over them, as if reminding them God is listening. What they didn't know was that, right there in Willow Creek, a man had just arrived, carrying the weight of guilt for walking away from the woman who had been carrying his child. Leo Bennett, a judge for the Oregon Talent Spark, was about to come face to face with destiny and with God's plan to heal a broken family. Light rain streaked the window of a hotel room in Portland, painting the October sky in dull gray. Leo Bennett, 35, sat at the desk, his deep blue eyes clouded with sorrow. Once a Grammy-winning music producer, he now lived in solitude, haunted by the past. On the desk, a cold cup of coffee sat beside his laptop, which displayed an article. Oregon Talent Spark welcomes guest judge, Leo Bennett. He frowned, his fingers brushing over an old photo in his wallet. Him and Emma Rivera, standing by the Deschutes River, beaming 10 years ago. Emma, with a voice like a hymn and eyes that shone like candles in St. Peter's Church, was the woman he had once sworn to love for life. But when she became pregnant, a forged letter from Clara, a jealous classmate from their music conservatory, had shattered everything. The letter read, Leo, I can't go on. The baby isn't yours. Don't come looking for me. It was accompanied by a blurry photo showing Emma with another man. At 25, young and impulsive, Leo believed it. He left Oregon carrying anger and heartbreak, abandoning Emma and the child he knew she was carrying. Now regret consumed him. He often wondered if God could ever forgive such a mistake. Last week, while packing up his apartment in Los Angeles, Leo found the photo again. It awakened dreams of Emma, of Sunday mornings at St. Peter's Church, where she'd sing hymns and say, God always has a plan, Leo. A letter from Sarah Coleman, a former colleague in Portland, arrived shortly after. Leo, Willow Creek needs you to judge the Oregon Talent Spark. Come back, for the kids. Leo agreed, not for fame, but for a faint hope. Maybe in Willow Creek, God would give him a chance to make things right. The rental car carried him along Highway 26, through lush green pine forests. The scent of damp earth and birdsong brought back memories of sitting by the river with Emma, listening to her sing You Are My Home while he strummed his guitar. One day I'll sing this for the whole world, she once said. Leo clutched the photo and whispered, Lord, if she's still here, please guide me. That prayer, his first in years, lightened his heart, like an organ breeze stirring the soul. The car pulled up outside the Willow Creek Community Center, a wooden building with a red-tiled roof, festively adorned with flags and lanterns for the Harvest Fair. A large Oregon Talent Spark poster hung at the entrance, and a crowd had already gathered. Local families, reporters from Bend, and church members carrying apple pies from River Brew. Sarah Coleman, her hair tied up, rushed to hug him. Leo, I can't believe you're here, she exclaimed. This year's contest is huge, thanks to you. Leo gave a faint smile. I just want to help the kids. Anything special I should know? Sarah winked. There's a pair of 9-year-old twins who sing like angels. Their voices, it's like they were sent from heaven. You'll see. Leo shrugged, but his heart stirred. He remembered Emma's voice, echoing through the church like a hymn, and wondered, was God sending him a sign? They stepped into the auditorium, where deep blue curtains and soft golden lights created a warm, inviting atmosphere. On the wall, a small wooden cross reminded Leo of the days he and Emma used to pray together. Sarah led him to the judge's table, introducing the other two panelists, a local music teacher and a journalist from Portland. "You're the star here," Sarah whispered. Leo shook his head. "I'm no star, just a lost man, hoping God will lead me home." When Sarah walked away, Leo sat down and watched the crowd trickle in. Children ran about, parents chatted, and the scent of pine mingled with fresh coffee. Willow Creek was still as welcoming as he remembered. Yet Leo felt out of place. He ran his thumb over the photo of Emma, remembering the moment he received that letter. "I left her. I left our child," he whispered. "Lord, if there's still a chance, please let me make it right." The wooden cross on the wall seemed to gaze back, and he felt something stir inside him, as if God was listening. In the corner of the auditorium, Nate and Noah whispered to each other, clutching the sheet music for "You Are My Home." They didn't know that the man sitting at the judge's table, with eyes full of sorrow, was their father, the one who had left their mother even knowing she was pregnant. And Leo didn't yet know that the voices of those two boys were about to awaken a memory he had tried to bury, and lead him into God's plan to heal a broken family. Leo Bennett couldn't sleep on his first night back in Willow Creek. In the small hotel room, moonlight slipped through the curtains and fell across a photograph on the desk. Him and Emma Rivera, 10 years ago, standing hand in hand by the Deschutes River. Emma, with her radiant smile and angelic voice, had once been his whole world. But a single envelope containing fabricated photos, sent by Clara, a jealous classmate, had destroyed everything. Leo closed his eyes, memories rushing in like the organ wind, pulling him back to the Portland Conservatory, where their love once bloomed, before he lost his way. 10 years ago, Leo, then 25, was a passionate young musician, and Emma was the conservatory's standout voice. They had met in choir class, where her rendition of Amazing Grace had brought the room to silence. With his guitar and dreams of the stage, Leo was captivated instantly. "You sing like an angel," he told her. Emma smiled. "My mother said a voice is a gift, to be shared." They quickly became inseparable. They would sit by the Deschutes River, Emma singing "You Are My Home," a song she had written while Leo composed the arrangement. On weekends, they'd visit River Brew or stroll through the park, dreaming of a future together. Emma often spoke about her childhood church, St. Peter's. "It's where I find peace," she'd say. Though Leo didn't attend church often, he loved hearing her talk about it. "We'll have a family one day," Emma whispered one night. Leo kissed her hand. "I'll never leave you." But that dream shattered when Emma told him she was pregnant. She broke the news one rainy afternoon. "Leo, we're having a baby." He hugged her, heart racing, already imagining a child with Emma's eyes, singing beside his guitar. But Clara, jealous that Emma had been chosen for a solo and that Leo loved only her, schemed to tear them apart. Clara, with her golden hair and cold, watchful eyes, began following Emma, snapping pictures of her chatting with Tom, a friendly classmate who helped her rehearse. One night, after a tense argument between Leo and Emma about fatherhood and his uncertain career, a mutual friend handed Leo an envelope, saying it was found at the conservatory. Inside were 5 photos: Emma smiling with Tom at a cafe, holding his hand during rehearsal, standing close in the courtyard. Some had been edited to look more intimate. One even showed them seemingly embracing. Alongside was a note: "Leo, she's not who you think. Don't let her fool you." Enraged and consumed by jealousy, Leo stormed into the conservatory's practice room, where Emma was rehearsing. Under dim lights and the patter of rain outside, he held up the photos, voice trembling. "Explain this, Emma. Who is he? When were you with him?" Emma, stunned, stared at the pictures and shook her head. "That's Tom. He's just a friend. You really think I'd cheat on you? I don't even know who took these." She reached for Leo's hand, eyes brimming with tears. "You have to believe me, Leo. I only want you." But Leo, blinded by hurt, shouted, "Believe you? When you're smiling at him, holding his hand?" Who's the father, Emma? Emma froze as if stabbed. You're doubting our child, she whispered, her voice cracking. I can't be with someone who doesn't trust me. She turned away, sobbing, leaving Leo standing there furious and broken. If you can't explain, I can't stay, he said, walking out, abandoning Emma and the child he knew she carried. Leo tried calling her later, but her number was disconnected. He asked around, but she had left the conservatory and moved to a small town no one could name. 2 years later, he hired a private investigator who could only confirm she was somewhere in Oregon. Then he stopped. I was afraid, Emma, Leo whispered to the photo. Afraid you'd built a new life. Afraid to face what I'd done. 3 years later, he ran into Sarah, an old classmate, who told him Tom and Emma were just friends, and that Clara had spread lies and rumors. Leo looked again at the photos he had kept for years, noticing unnatural lighting and awkward angles. They'd been doctored, but it was too late. Emma was gone. Leo threw himself into his career in Los Angeles, bearing the pain. But each night he dreamed of Emma singing, "You Are My Home," a haunting reminder of the mistake he could never undo. Now in Willow Creek, Leo held the photo as tears slid down his cheeks. Lord, I doubted Emma, and I abandoned our child because of lies. Please, give me a chance to make it right, he whispered, one of the rare earnest prayers of his adult life. He stepped out onto the balcony. Willow Creek was peaceful, the sound of pine leaves rustling in the breeze. Festival lanterns lit up the community center, where Oregon Talent Spark would soon begin. Sarah Coleman, the one who had invited him, had spoken of a pair of twins who sing like angels. Leo's heart stirred. If you're here, Emma, I'll find you, he whispered. The next day, Leo arrived at the community center and took his seat at the judge's table. The hall buzzed with chatter, the smell of baked goods from River Brew, and the laughter of children. In the corner, Nate and Noah clutched their sheet music for You Are My Home, unaware that the sorrowful man sitting at the judge's table was their father, the man who had left their mother even knowing she was pregnant. And Leo didn't yet know that their voices were about to bring him back, to the love and the family he thought he had lost forever. The Willow Creek Community Center auditorium sparkled with lights. Excited chatter buzzed from the crowd gathering for the Oregon Talent Spark. Deep blue curtains shimmered under the warm lighting, while wooden chairs trimmed with lantern string lights added to the festive harvest season mood. The scent of apple pie from River Brew and rich coffee filled the space with the cozy warmth of a small town amid the October chill. Backstage, Nate and Noah Rivera stood huddled together, their small hands gripping the sheet music for You Are My Home. Their white dress shirts were oversized, their brown hair tousled by the wind, and their big brown eyes gleamed with a mix of worry and determination. Nate, there are so many people, Noah whispered, tiptoeing to peek through the curtain, clutching his brother's hand tighter. I'm scared I'll forget the lyrics. Nate, though also trembling, stood straighter, his expression serious. Mom said we sing to make her smile. We can do this, Noah. For Mom. Noah nodded, his gap-toothed smile lighting up his face. Yeah, the Rivera stars are gonna make her proud. What they didn't know was that their mother, Emma, was at Marionberry Haven Bakery, coughing behind the counter, hiding her illness to keep them from worrying. And even more unknown to them was that sitting at the judge's table was Leo Bennett, the man who had walked away from their mother while she was pregnant, carrying a heavy heart and a fragile sliver of hope. Leo sat in the middle of the auditorium, pen in hand, eyes scanning the stage but weighed down by guilt. For the past 10 years, he'd lived with torment, blaming himself for abandoning Emma after believing in forged photos, failing to trust the woman he had once loved more than life itself. When he finally learned the truth, it was too late. Emma had vanished from Portland, leaving him with a decade of regret. The photograph of her by the Deschutes River, now tucked into his coat pocket, was the reason he'd come to Willow Creek, hoping to find her and face the past. He had a suspicion. She had been pregnant. Could he have a child? But 10 years? What if she moved on? What if they're not mine? The thought ached in his chest, a war of hope and dread tearing through him. The speakers crackled, pulling Leo back to the present. The MC, a glowing woman from band, announced, "Up next, Rivera stars performing You Are My Home." Applause filled the room as Nate and Noah stepped onto the stage. Two small, slender boys, no older than 7 or 8, stumbled slightly on their way out. Their oversized white shirts hung loosely, and their hands trembled as they clutched the microphones. Nate, with messy hair and a focused gaze, nodded at Noah, who bit his lip, his smile shy. Under the lights, their big brown eyes shimmered as if they were ready to leave fear behind. Nate began, his voice low and steady though still young. "You are my home wherever I roam." Noah joined in, his voice clear and high, like a bell echoing through the hall. Leo froze. That voice, pure, warm, full of emotion, was Emma's. It was her. He stared at the boys, his heart thudding. Those deep brown eyes, Noah's radiant smile. The way Nate tilted his head, it was Emma, as if she were standing there. How do they look so much like her, he thought, breath catching in his throat. Then came a terrifying question. Are they mine or someone else's? Emotion surged in Leo's chest. A piece of Emma he thought he'd lost forever now suddenly before him. But doubt sliced through the joy like a blade. He had known she was pregnant, but he left her. What if she had found someone else? What if the twins weren't his? His hands clenched, his vision blurred. Regret gripped him. Memories of her sobbing, of him yelling, of his failure to find her even when he tried. Now Nate and Noah stood before him, small and brilliant, and Leo felt torn apart. Joy at seeing pieces of Emma again. Pain that he might have lost her forever. Nate and Noah sang, their fear forgotten. They thought of their mother, who smiled through chest pain, who taught them, "You are my home every night. When the night is cold, you keep me warm." They harmonized, their voices blending like a prayer, a silent promise to save her with that $20,000 prize. The audience went quiet. Mr. Jenkins, Miss Harper, and others sat with tear-filled eyes. Some remembered Emma singing at St. Peter's Church long ago, her voice once enchanting the entire town. But Nate and Noah sang only for her, not noticing the audience, not seeing the man at the judges' table fighting a rising tide of emotion. As the last note echoed, the room erupted in applause. Nate and Noah bowed, hands shaking but their faces beaming, eyes sparkling like stars. Leo didn't clap. He sat still, eyes red, hands trembling as he wrote his score. They looked so much like her, he thought, heart caught in a storm of longing and fear. Do I have a chance to make this right? He wondered, like a single ray of light piercing the darkness of guilt. The MC called for comments from the judges. Leo inhaled deeply. His voice came out hoarse. "You boys, you sang with your whole hearts. That voice reminded me of someone very special." The crowd applauded, but Nate and Noah simply smiled at each other, not understanding. They left the stage, hearts pounding with pride for doing well, unaware that the man who had once broken their mother's heart was the one watching them now. Leo rose and quietly slipped backstage. There he saw Nate and Noah, hugging, giggling, their brown eyes aglow. He stopped a few steps away, staring at them. They were Emma, her voice, her smile, even the way they tilted their heads. But were they his or someone else's? I need to know the truth, he thought, heart racing. He had to find their mother. He had to see Emma. He had to apologize for the lost years. Back at Marionberry Haven, Emma swept the floor, unaware that her son's voices had opened the door to a past long buried, and a chance to face it. The Willow Creek Community Center auditorium still buzzed after Nate and Noah's performance. Applause and chatter mingled with the scent of apple pie from River Brew, wrapping the harvest celebration in a small-town warmth. Lantern lights shimmered above, but Leo Bennett no longer noticed them. He rose from the judge's table, heart pounding, and quickly stepped backstage. The voices of the two boys, pure, warm, and hauntingly like Emma's, still echoed in his mind. Their wide brown eyes, gap-toothed smile, the way they tilted their heads, everything about them reminded him of her. Are they my children, or someone else's? The thought knotted in his chest, caught between hope and fear. Behind the stage, Nate and Noah Rivera sat on a wooden bench, small and huddled in their oversized white dress shirts. Noah whistled the chorus of "You are my home," his feet swinging beneath him, while Nate carefully folded their sheet music, his big eyes scanning the room. "We did good, right?" Noah asked, his smile bright. Nate nodded, his tone serious. "Yeah, Mom's going to be proud. Now we just need to win so she can get better." They had no idea their mother Emma was at Marionberry Haven, sweeping the bakery floor, hiding her coughs so they wouldn't worry. And they certainly didn't know that the man walking toward them, eyes full of memories, was the one who had once broken her heart. Leo stopped a few steps away, taking a deep breath to steady himself. The boys were smaller than he had imagined. Their tousled brown hair and soft, innocent faces made his chest tighten. Nate's deep brown eyes, so much like Emma's, stopped him in his tracks. Noah's smile, complete with that chipped front tooth, mirrored Emma's smile by the Deschutes River a decade ago. For 10 years, Leo had lived with relentless guilt, for doubting Emma, for abandoning her when she was pregnant. He had tried to find her, but she had vanished, leaving him with regret too heavy to bear. Now these boys, their voices, gestures, and faces, stirred something deep within him, and yet fear crept in. What if she moved on? What if they're not mine, he wondered, his hand trembling as he stepped closer. "Hi there," Leo said, his voice rough, forcing a smile. Nate and Noah looked up, wide-eyed with curiosity. "I'm one of the judges. You boys sang beautifully." Noah beamed. "Thanks, our mom taught us that song." Nate, always more cautious, asked, "You really liked it?" "We just wanted to make our mom smile." Leo's chest tightened. "Yes, I really did. That song, it's very special." He hesitated, then asked softly, "What's your mom's name?" Nate glanced at Noah as if seeking permission, then answered innocently, "Our mom's Emma Rivera. She works at the bakery." Leo froze like lightning had struck him. "Emma Rivera," he repeated, the name catching in his throat as his eyes blurred. "She was here, in Willow Creek, just blocks away." Emotion surged like finding a piece of his soul that had been missing. But quickly, doubt and fear returned. The boys looked like Emma, but 10 years was a long time. What if she'd built a new life? What if Nate and Noah belonged to someone else? His fists clenched, shame pressing down on him. He remembered Emma's voice breaking in tears during their last argument. He had doubted her, believed lies, and for 10 years he'd lived with the guilt of not being there. Not for her, not for their child. "I knew your mom once," Leo murmured, eyes fixed on the boys. Noah tilted his head, curious. "Really?" "She never told us." Nate, sharper, asked, "How long did you know her?" Leo gave a sad smile, his voice unsteady. "A long time ago. Your mom, she's a very special woman." He wanted to say more, to ask more, but he couldn't. Not yet. He had to see Emma. He had to apologize. He had to know the truth. "You boys rest up for the next round, okay?" he said, doing his best to stay calm. "I'll be cheering you on." Nate and Noah nodded, smiling brightly, then ran off, leaving Leo standing in silence. He returned to the auditorium and found Sarah Coleman, the event organizer. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I need to ask a favor. Please, don't mention anything about Nate and Noah, or their mother, to anyone. I need to confirm something." Sarah frowned slightly but nodded. "Of course, Leo. I'll keep it between us." Leo thanked her, but his heart was in turmoil. "Do I still have a chance to make this right?" he wondered, clinging to a fragile thread of hope in the storm of guilt and uncertainty. He stepped outside, the October chill seeping through his coat. Willow Creek lay quiet under the glow of festival lanterns. In the distance he gazed toward Marionberry Haven, where Emma was working. He remembered the nights she used to sing, "You Are My Home," her voice clear and angelic in St. Peter's Church. He had loved her, had dreamed of a family, but he had destroyed it all, because of doubt. Now Nate and Noah, their voices, their smiles, their essence, could be his sons, or they could be a reminder of everything he had lost. "Emma," he whispered into the crisp air, "I have to find you." At the bakery, Emma wiped down the counter, her hands trembling from fatigue. She didn't know that her sons' voices had just echoed through Organ Talentspart. She didn't know that Leo, The man who once doubted and left her was stepping closer to the life she had built. And Nate and Noah, giggling back at the community center, had no idea that their innocent words had opened the door for a broken family to finally face the truth. Even if that meant confronting doubt and deep, aching regret. Night had fallen over Willow Creek, and the October chill crept through the cobblestone streets, carrying with it the scent of pine and warm pastries from the Harvest Festival. The golden light of Marionberry Haven Bakery spilled onto the sidewalk, where Emma Rivera swept the floor. Her brown hair was tied up high, a few loose strands falling over her tired eyes. She coughed softly, covering her mouth with a cloth, hiding the faint trace of red. She had no idea that just a few streets away, the voices of Nate and Noah at Oregon Talent Spark had shaken the heart of the man she once loved, and the man who had shattered hers. Leo Bennett stood outside the bakery, his hand clutching the photograph of Emma inside his coat pocket. For 10 years he had lived with torment, blaming himself for doubting her because of forged photos, leaving her while she was carrying his child. Now, after hearing Nate and Noah, two boys whose voices and smiles mirrored Emma, he could no longer wait. She's here, he thought, heart pounding, but doubt still gripped him. What if those boys aren't mine? What if she built a new life? He drew a deep breath and pushed the door open. The chime of the bell shattered the silence. Emma looked up, her hands frozen on the broom handle. When she saw Leo, her body stiffened, her eyes widened in shock. His face, the same deep blue eyes though now lined with pain, thrust her back to that moment 10 years ago, when he had yelled at her over fake photographs. "You!" she whispered, her voice trembling. Then coldly, "You have the nerve to come back." Leo stepped forward, raising a hand as if to ease the tension, but stopped when he saw her eyes, wounded, furious, and unforgiving. "Emma," he said, voice hoarse, I need to talk." Emma gripped the broom tighter and turned away. "Talk? After everything you did?" Her voice cut sharp. Leo bowed his head, shame welling up. "I was wrong, Emma. The photos, they were fake. Clara set it all up to tear us apart. I found out years later, but it was too late. I tried to find you, but you had vanished." He paused, eyes red. "I've lived 10 years with that punishment, Emma. I'm not asking for forgiveness tonight, but I need you to know I regret everything." Emma turned back toward him, her eyes glassy but her tone still cold. "Regret," she echoed. "You doubted me, Leo. Even when I begged you to believe. You thought I cheated. Thought the baby—" She stopped, her voice cracking, unwilling to say their names. "You left me, alone, and now you come back because you feel guilty." Leo's heart clenched. He remembered her sobbing, remembered his blind refusal to believe her. He had lived a decade in agony, imagining the child he never met. "I heard them sing tonight," he said, voice shaking. "Nate and Noah, they sound like you, Emma. Their voices, their eyes, their smiles. I think they might be mine, but I'm not sure. I'm scared you moved on, that they're someone else's children." Emma's entire body tensed. Her eyes sharpened. "Don't talk about my sons," she said, her voice low and clipped. "You have no right, Leo. Not after what you did." Leo took one step closer, his eyes glassy. "I'm not claiming any rights, Emma. I'm only asking for the truth. If they're not mine, I'll leave. But if they are—" His voice broke. "I already lost you. I lost 10 years. I can't bear the thought of losing even more." Emma looked at him, her hands trembling. She wanted to scream, to tell him about the nights she cried alone, about raising Nate and Noah with a shattered heart. But she said nothing. She turned away, hiding the cough that clawed at her chest. "You don't understand, Leo," she said softly but firmly. "I don't want your apology. Not tonight." She pointed to the door. "Go. Leave me in peace." Leo stood frozen, wanting to say more, but her gaze, fierce and broken, held him back. "I won't bother you again," he said, his voice ragged. "But I won't give up, Emma. Not until I know the truth." He turned and walked out. The bell above the door chimed behind him, like a quiet farewell. Emma stood still, her hand over her chest as tears streamed down her face. She remembered the days with Leo, the nights they sang, "You Are My Home" by the Deschutes River. She remembered the moment everything collapsed, the betrayal, the heartbreak. She used to sing at St. Peter's Church to find peace, but now even peace felt unreachable. "You don't know anything, Leo," she whispered, thinking of Nate and Noah, and the secret she had kept to protect them. Leo walked the quiet streets of Willow Creek, the October chill seeping through his coat. He gazed at the glowing lanterns of the harvest festival, his thoughts tangled and heavy. Emma was here, strong, but hurt. Nate and Noah, with her voice, her smile, might be his sons. Or they might just be reminders of everything he had lost. Do I still have a chance to make this right? He wondered, heart heavy. He needed to find out. He needed to face the truth, no matter how painful. And at the bakery, Emma wiped her tears, not knowing that tonight's confrontation was only the beginning of a long journey to heal a broken family. The morning after the first round of Organ Talent Spark, Willow Creek glowed under the autumn sun. The festive atmosphere of the harvest fair had softened, giving way to the town's quiet rhythm. At the community center, Nate and Noah Rivera practiced for the finals. Their white shirts were wrinkled, their brown hair tousled, and their wide brown eyes sparkled with hope. "We have to sing even better, Nate," Noah said brightly, swinging his legs, "so Mom can get the money to feel better." Nate, ever the quiet one, nodded, but his eyes were worried. He knew their mom, Emma, was hiding her coughs, and that weight sat heavily on his small shoulders. Leo Bennett stood just a few steps from the stage, his eyes fixed on the boys. For 10 years he had lived with guilt, tormenting himself for believing forged photos and walking away from Emma when she was pregnant. Last night at Marionberry Haven, the cold look in her eyes, "You have the nerve to come back?" had cut him to the core. Nate and Noah, with their voices and smiles so much like Emma's, had stirred something deep inside him. He suspected they were his sons, but fear still gripped him. What if they belonged to someone else? What if Emma built a new life? He thought, torn. Suddenly Nate stumbled, clutching his head, and collapsed on the floor. Noah panicked. "Nate! Nate!" he screamed. Leo rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside the boy, his heart pounding. "Nate, can you hear me?" he called out, gently lifting him. Nate's chubby face was pale, his eyes closed, breathing faint. Noah clung to his brother's hand, sobbing, "Please help him." Leo scooped Nate into his arms. The boy was so light it broke his heart. He rushed them to his car, driving straight to the local hospital. Something primal, something paternal had awakened, even if he still didn't know for sure whether they were his children. At the hospital, the doctors took Nate in immediately. Leo sat with Noah in the waiting room, the little boy shaking in his arms. "Is Nate going to be okay?" Noah whispered, eyes glossy with tears. Leo tightened his arm around him. "Yes, I promise. Nate's strong." But inside he was terrified. He looked down at Noah, those deep brown eyes, the gap-toothed grin, and saw Emma and the years he had missed. Regret surged. He thought of Emma's tears during their last fight, of his refusal to believe her, of the 10 years spent punishing himself. And now one of the two boys, possibly his own son, was lying in a hospital bed. A middle-aged female doctor walked in. "Nate's stable," she said. "He fainted due to malnutrition and stress. Likely from too much worry. We've given him fluids and are monitoring him." Leo exhaled deeply, though his chest tightened. "Malnutrition," he repeated, thinking of Emma, working constantly to support them. Noah murmured, "Mom works too much. We don't have much money." Leo asked to see Nate. The boy lay on the hospital bed, tiny in the oversized gown, eyes barely open. "You're the judge, right?" Nate asked faintly. Leo nodded, sitting beside him, gently brushing his hair back. "Yes, I'm here. Just rest now, okay?" Nate gave a weak smile before closing his eyes again. Leo sat there, overwhelmed. How much have I missed, he wondered, eyes misty. He stayed up all night, wiping Nate's forehead, fetching water for Noah, watching over them like a father discovering love for the first time. In the middle of the night, Leo walked out to the hallway to get coffee. As he passed the reception, he overheard the doctor speaking to a nurse. "Nate Rivera has AB negative blood. Very rare," she said quietly. The nurse nodded. So does Noah. Not often you see AB in a small town. Leo froze as if struck by lightning. A B question mark, he whispered, hand trembling. He knew his own blood type, and that kind of genetic match couldn't be a coincidence. Nate and Noah were his sons. His heart clenched. He had been absent for 10 years. Looking at their frail bodies, boys who looked younger than 9, he realized how hard life had been for them. Nate had fainted because of stress and poor nutrition. The pain was unbearable. A wave of joy surged in him, like reclaiming a part of himself. He peeked through the room's window. Nate was asleep, Noah curled up in a chair nearby. They were his, those brown eyes, those smiles, that voice Emma once carried alone. Now they were part of him too. But then came the fear. He had abandoned Emma, abandoned them. He had left them in need and hardship. He remembered her cold eyes, remembered how he had doubted her because of lies. Do I even deserve a second chance, he wondered, his chest aching. Just then, Emma appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes red from worry. She looked at Nate, then Noah. But when her gaze landed on Leo, it hardened. Thank you for bringing Nate, she said coldly, not meeting his eyes. I'll take it from here. Leo stood. He wanted to tell her about the blood type, about the truth, but the words caught in his throat. Emma, Don't, Leo, she cut him off. Not now. She sat beside Nate, brushing back his hair, hiding a rising cough. Leo stepped out, his heart in turmoil, but more determined than ever. In the quiet hallway, Leo stared at the moonlight spilling over Willow Creek. He remembered Emma singing, "You Are My Home" by the Deschutes River, her voice like light in the dark. Now he knew, Nate and Noah were his sons, but the road to redemption was only beginning. He would do whatever it took to make things right, to protect the boys, to care for Emma, the woman he had once loved, and still did, even after breaking her heart. You're watching Soul Stories. This story is created exclusively for our channel. If you're still following along, leave a comment below to share your thoughts. We read and appreciate every single one. Your support helps us continue making original, heart-touching stories. Please don't forget to subscribe and remember, Soul Stories is the only home for these true-to-heart tales. Thank you for being part of our family. Finals night of Oregon Talent Spark turned the Willow Creek Community Center into a sea of light, the beating heart of a small town in the height of fall. Lanterns shimmered high above, deep blue curtains rippled gently, and the scent of apple pie from river brew lingered in the air, blending with the laughter of the audience. The auditorium was packed, from Mr. Jenkins from the bookstore to Miss Harper from the school, all holding their breath for the final performance. Backstage, Nate and Noah Rivera, the 7-year-old twins, stood huddled together, small in their crisp white shirts, their tousled brown hair catching the glow from stage lights. Their big brown eyes gleamed with determination, their hands clutching the sheet music for Bring Her Back to Life, a song they had written for their mother Emma, with all the innocent love in their hearts. Nate, we can't forget the words, Noah whispered, tiptoeing to peek out at the audience, his chipped tooth grin trembling. Nate, quieter, squeezed his brother's hand, his voice small but firm. We're singing for Mom, Noah, so she can smile again. After Nate's collapse, both boys were even more determined to win the $20,000 prize, hoping to save Emma from the coughing spells she still tried to hide. They didn't know that their mother sat quietly in the audience, her hands clasped tightly, eyes red with pride and worry. And they certainly didn't know that, at the judges' table, Leo Bennett, who had just confirmed they were his sons, was struggling to contain a tidal wave of emotion. Leo sat frozen, knuckles white around the pen in his hand, his gaze locked on the stage. Since overhearing the doctor mention that both boys had AB negative blood, just like him, he knew the truth. Nate and Noah were his sons. A joy like sunlight had broken through his darkness, but shame and fear still clung to him. For 10 years he had lived with the pain of doubting Emma, of leaving her and their children because of forged photos. The memory of her cold stare at the bakery. You have the nerve to come back? and at the hospital. Don't, Leo. Cut deeper than any wound. Will she ever forgive me? He wondered, chest heavy. He wanted to step forward, to claim his sons, to make it right, but not at the cost of hurting Emma again. The loudspeaker crackled. The MC's cheerful voice rang out. Next up, Rivera stars with Bring Her Back to Life. Applause erupted as Nate and Noah stepped onto the stage. Small and slender, their white shirts billowed as they gripped the microphones, hands trembling. Nate, serious as ever, nodded to Noah, whose shy smile lit up his round cheeks. Under the lights, their brown eyes sparkled, carrying all the love they had for their mother. Nate began, his voice young but steady. Bring her back to life with every breath we take. Noah followed, his voice high and clear as a bell. For her, we'll fight. For her, we'll break. Leo's chest tightened. That voice, pure, warm, was Emma's. But the lyrics, they were the boys'. She's our light, our home. We'll never let her go. They sang as if they were pleading with the universe to save their mother. Leo looked at them, saw Emma in every movement. Noah's gap-toothed grin, the way Nate tilted his head. Emotion overwhelmed him. Years of repressed grief and regret surged to the surface. He remembered Emma's tears the night he walked away. The pain of missing 9 years of his children's lives, the joy of discovering them, now mixed with torment, and he could no longer stay still. In the audience, Emma gripped her hands so tightly they ached. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The boys' voices, Bring Her Back to Life, ripped through her. She had hidden her illness, her pain, but her son's love left her breathless. She looked at them, so small yet so brave, and felt both pride and fear swell inside her. Then she glanced at Leo, saw his eyes locked on the boys, and her heart twisted. She remembered the fight 10 years ago, the betrayal, and the wound that still hadn't healed. As the final note faded, the auditorium fell silent, then erupted in applause. Nate and Noah bowed, their hands still shaking, their faces glowing with joy, eyes shining with triumph. Leo shot to his feet, tears streaming down his face. He couldn't hold it in anymore. They're my sons. I can't judge anymore, he said hoarsely, his voice catching in the microphone and slicing through 10 years of silence. The room fell into stunned silence. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Miss Harper wiped her eyes, moved beyond words. Mr. Jenkins looked around confused. Then applause returned. Louder, more powerful, waves of compassion and astonishment rising together. On stage, Nate and Noah exchanged puzzled glances. What did he say? Noah whispered wide-eyed. Nate, holding his brother's hand, shook his head. He's the judge. Maybe he just liked our song. They smiled, innocent and bright, not understanding, but still basking in the thought that their mom was proud. In the crowd, Emma stood frozen, hand pressed to her chest, tears streaming uncontrollably. Shocked and overwhelmed, she rose quietly and slipped out of the auditorium. She didn't want to face Leo. He has no right, she thought. But her heart was in turmoil, caught between hurt and the love she still held for her children. Leo remained frozen, eyes on Nate and Noah, tears still falling. He wanted to run to them to say, I'm your father. But the look of confusion on their faces stopped him. He turned to find Emma, only to see she was gone, and his heart sank. I've heard her again, he thought, pain tearing through him. He remembered the nights she sang, You Are My Home by the Deschutes River, her voice aflame in the dark. Now Nate and Noah were that flame. But Emma, the woman he loved and had wounded, remained distant. The crowd continued clapping. Some stood, some cried. Leo stood still, caught in the tide of emotion. He had finally spoken the truth. Nate and Noah were his sons. But the journey to rebuild a broken family had only just begun. Outside, beneath the moonlight of Willow Creek, Emma wiped her tears. She thought of her boys, of Leo, and of the pain she hadn't been able to let go. And somewhere beneath all that grief, a fragile hope stirred. That maybe, somehow, they could find their way back to each other. 1 month after the Oregon Talent Sparked finals, Willow Creek glowed in the golden hues of autumn. Maple trees in the town park shed their leaves, carpeting the path with shimmering gold. A small celebration unfolded beneath the gentle sunlight, the laughter of children mingling with the scent of apple pie from River Brew. Nate and Noah Rivera ran through piles of leaves, wearing matching blue sweaters now smudged with dirt. Their wide brown eyes sparkled with joy, and Noah's gap-toothed grin lit up the park like sunshine. "Catch me, Nate!" Noah shouted, darting through the leaves. Quiet and thoughtful, Nate chased after him, laughing softly. Emma Rivera sat on a wooden bench nearby. Her face was pale, but her eyes were brighter after the surgery. Thanks to the $20,000 prize and the quiet support of Leo Bennett, she was free of the tumor in her lung. Nate and Noah had won the competition and received music scholarships from a Portland foundation, opening a new door to their future. After Leo publicly claimed paternity, Emma had sat down with the boys, her voice gentle. "Boys, Mr. Leo is your father. He wasn't around because of a big misunderstanding, but he loves you, and he wants to be part of our lives." Nate's eyes had widened. "Will Daddy play with us all the time now?" Noah had giggled. "He's funny." Emma had pulled them into her arms, her heart torn. But when she saw their acceptance of Leo, she felt God's love surrounding them, like a guiding light. Leo stood near the refreshment table, his gaze never leaving Emma and the boys. After confirming that Nate and Noah were his through their rare blood type, he lived with a blend of joy and fear. Emma's cold gaze at the bakery, "Don't, Leo," and again at the hospital still haunted him. For 10 years he had carried the pain of doubting her, of leaving her and their children because of forged photos. Hearing Nate and Noah call him Dad gave him hope that perhaps in God's mercy he had a chance to make things right. He wanted to win Emma's heart again, the way he had when they first met by the Deschutes River, but feared she wasn't ready to open her heart. Nate ran up, tugging on Leo's sleeve. "Dad, come play with us," he said, eyes shining. Noah followed, grinning. "Dad runs slow, I'll totally win." Leo laughed and dashed into the leaves, letting them climb onto his back. Their laughter echoed, drawing Emma's eyes toward them. She saw Leo, not the man who once doubted her, but the one who carried Nate into the hospital, paid the bills, and laughed with the boys like a true father. She thought of St. Peter's Church, where she used to sing, believing God taught forgiveness. "Can I let go?" she wondered, clenching her hands on her lap. Leo paused and looked back at her. She gave him a small, fleeting smile. He took a deep breath and walked over. "Emma," he said, voice rough with emotion, "I need to say something." Emma nodded, her eyes cautious. Nate and Noah were still playing in the distance, unaware. Leo knelt before her, eyes misty. "Emma, I was wrong. I doubted you because of those fake photos. I didn't trust you, even when you begged me to. I left you and the kids, and for 10 years, I've lived with that guilt, believing I didn't deserve forgiveness. But when I found out Nate and Noah were mine, I felt like God was giving me a chance to fix what I broke. I'm not asking you to forget the pain. I'm just asking for a chance to start over, to win you back, like when we first met, to be the father they deserve, and to rebuild the love we once had." Emma looked at him, tears slipping down her cheeks. She remembered her own crying voice the nights raising Nate and Noah alone, the cold look she had given him. But now she saw Leo playing with their boys. She saw how he had changed. "You hurt me, Leo," she said, voice trembling. "But I've seen you try. For them. I can't forget. But I'll give you a chance. For Nate. For Noah. And maybe for us." Leo took her hand, eyes brimming. "I won't let you down," he whispered. Emma nodded, her smile blurred with tears. Nate and Noah came running. "Mom, why are you crying?" Noah asked, eyes full of concern. Emma pulled them into a hug. "I'm happy, sweethearts. We have a dad now." Leo knelt and wrapped all three in his arms, tears falling freely. "I'll never leave you again," he said. Nate gripped his hand. Noah jumped on his back, giggling. Beneath the golden maple trees, the four of them embraced among the falling leaves. Nate and Noah's laughter rang like the songs Emma once sang, pure, bright, and full of hope. With God's love leading them, a broken family began a new journey, one filled with healing, forgiveness, and the promise of a future together.